Washington State, and where her father was employed, and then she goes through high school there and goes to Hawaii, to the University of Hawaii, where she mingles with the various recipients of foreign aid, and Hawaii being the sort of it's just the same way as Puerto Rico was sort of the front door of the open door policy of cheap labor for the Northeast.
That's right.
Hawaii was the open door policy for cheap labor for the entire Pacific coast. And it brought in the railroad workers, and it brought in the various.
I didn't know that.
Right.
Well, the Chinese, but they brought in Chinese.
Chinese and Japanese and everything from the South Sea, etc. And remember the Captain Cook and all that business.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, right. So the point is that Hawaii is strategically located as a refueling point, hop-up point, just like Guam is when you're flying across the Pacific with the long-range planes. So anyway, so I said, okay, look, I'm not going to do the Obama, shuffle, which all these high-powered attorneys are doing. So what I did was say, so where's the mother been, right?
Yes.
So I put that in, not a word. They received it. Oh my God, not a word, not a word, not a word. So in November, I says, this is, what I did was to file a federal case in Eastern District.
Yes.
Saying to the New York State Secretary of State, didn't you find out? Isn't this, and they're, of course, no. Pelosi, the deal was between Hillary and Obama and Berg and others at the convention was they would put to rest the conspiracy, and of the birth. And so she certified and told all the secretaries of state to go ahead and put them on the ballot, notwithstanding anything else which was afoot. Berg continued on with his case, and on the snipe hunt as to where was Waldo born, right? And never found out. Certainly the certification of live birth, which is merely a certification that the man is a naturalized citizen and nothing else, does not show the various signatures and the certifications which any long-form birth certificate has. And that there's a reason why they don't want to show it, and I believe that it's in the possession of the Chancellor of the Exchequer of Britain, because the senior, his father, who was an exchange student being paid for by the U.S. government through University of Hawaii, he was in Russian studies, and they're training all the foreigners to go back and cause trouble in the progressive sense in all these other countries, and of course, in just the same way Obama was put through the progressive training program with Bill Ayers and the Saul Alinsky.
What does that mean? What, progressive training school?
Communism.
Oh.
Okay. I mean, truly, what Saul Alinsky, his book on the training of any radical, of any activist.
He was trained in that.
In the Saul Alinsky School, which is directly Jesuitical, Jesuitical, in terms of liberation movements, and that. Anyway, all that aside, I wasn't even really interested in getting into that, because that's Michigas, as they say. So I just want to know where the mother was. So basically, I ended up in state court where I had standing. The federal court says I don't have the standing to ask. No more porridge for Oliver Twist.
Why don't you have standing in federal court? So you all had standing.
Well, the question is whether or not the Constitution still survives. In my mind, it does, and it's a question of and I don't. There's a whole history of why the Constitution was put in place, and it has to do with debt repayment. There was the entire debt accumulated at the time of the Revolution had to be paid for in some manner, and we adopted the Spanish dollar in order to do that. And all of the debt, other than the $3 million in actual military debt that the Continental Congress had taken on and George Washington had insisted on, that plus the expanded debt outside of gold of sterling, of the British sterling, because we had left them. So that debt had to be guaranteed in some manner, shape, or form by the colonies that had become states and under the Articles of Confederation. And that failed, and there was a debt crisis there, and they had to put together a stronger central government, which in 1787 was the Constitution under the watchful eye of George Washington, who didn't say too much at all, other than when he disbanded the Continental Army in May of '83. He said, I'm doing this with the proviso you pay the debt and create a workable repayment scheme, and with the threat that if you don't do it,
I'll bring them back.
that I'll just call up the military and overthrow you too. And that he made it quite clear in that letter of May of 1783. So he was put, of course, he was put in charge of the Continental, the convention for the Constitution, because you want to put a guy like that close by, you know, who's got to keep a guy like that happy, since he was a very popular general, and everybody laid down their lives for him. Especially General Knox, who was a noxious sort of guy. He was the only one that von Steuben, who was the aide-de-camp for Frederick the Great, who was big-time Mason, who since von Steuben over working for King George, right, who then essentially did a flip and was running the Masonic army to split it from the Parliament, right? So that von Steuben said, well, Knox is the only guy that can hit anything. You know, he had his cannoneers and he could hit a target, right? So von Steuben had great things to say about Knox. But all that aside, the debt went through various phases of a Ponzi scheme, and it can be read nothing but a Ponzi scheme. It went from the failure to repay the debt under the Articles of Confederation, setting up the Declaration or the Constitution in 1787, and the government that we presently know, which then, in a 70-year debt repayment structure, in 1859 collapsed again under the Buchanan administration, leading to the war between the states and the implementation of the 14th Amendment America, which essentially took away states' rights and installed a fascist dictatorship under the control of Georgetown and then the Jesuits. And that led to the 1929 crash, the 14th Amendment America, where everything was tightly controlled by Washington without any states' right under the 14th Amendment. Went to the 29 crash, which was an attempt to pay the very debt that hadn't been paid under the Articles of Confederation, again as a Ponzi scheme. And you can look at the structure of how the Supreme Court views this through the Amway case, I think it was in '79.
Amway?
Amway. You know, there's multi-level schemes.
That's a Ponzi scheme.
Right, multi-level Ponzi schemes,
Yes.
where Amway is the model of why we can't operate now, and it's still operating. So anyway, so 29, they reorganized again. They brought in big-time Mason, FDR, who was, is wearing his funny hats and with funny handshakes and all the talks and walks and, all this stuff. And that he put forward, he brought in the Knight of Malta, Joseph Kennedy, right out of the market, they put the fox in the chicken coop, right? And he was putting...
Sounds like today.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying to you
Yes.
that the Ponzi scheme continued. They set up
Yes.
Glass-Steagall, and that, again, Clinton found $5 trillion of available money to pay the debt. And we could have gotten out of this, see?
Uh-huh.
And rather than do that, they expanded the Ponzi scheme in '99 when they got rid of Glass-Steagall. And we went into this whole hyperinflationary business under the scheme. Somehow all our computers were going to crash and a lot of other things. But so the point is, we're into the 6th level of a Ponzi scheme. If you read the Amway case, it can't be. Now, the Supreme Court said, no, it can't be.